The corridor smells like hot dust and floor wax. A Marine checks your pass, then waves you into a room that never really goes quiet, relays clicking, bells chirping, voices breaking on the other end of a line. You swallow every question before it becomes sound. This is your life, level by level, inside World War II presidential protection negotiation. Switchboard liaison, where connection becomes control. The office is small enough that shoulders bump when you stand. Green shaded lamps throw hard circles of light onto message pads. Cords hang like vines from a switchboard with rows of jacks, each one a different voice, a different emergency. You keep a pencil behind your ear. You write names, units, return numbers. You listen to mothers in Des Moines and colonels in Washington using the same trembling words. You never say what you know. You never promise what you can't deliver. You tell yourself you're only routing calls. You tell yourself you're only taking messages. You tell yourself your calm voice isn't a weapon. But one slipped detail, an airfield name, a departure time, can jump the line faster than any signal. A duty officer leans in and gives you a code phrase, and suddenly a panicked family call becomes a security problem. You note the exact wording. You log the time to the minute. You hand the slip to a runner without looking up. You spend all day connecting people, and every connection teaches you how easily a life can be unplugged. Communication specialist. Trust in the silence you must keep. Now you work behind a heavier door. The booth is insulated, windowless, and always warm from the equipment. Headphones clamp your ears. A signal lamp pulses, and you copy traffic in tight block letters. Coordinates, call signs, weather windows, short directives that sound harmless until you picture the map. Your world is ticking clocks, carbon paper, and the smell of ozone. You relay without reacting. You repeat to confirm. You burn the draft in a metal tray when the copy is verified. You tell yourself you're just a conduit. You tell yourself you're not choosing outcomes. You tell yourself objectivity is the same thing as innocence. Then you transmit an order that moves men at midnight, and you can't stop counting the hours until sunrise. A supervisor checks your logbook page numbers, signatures, the timestamps aligned. One missing initial becomes a searchlight turned inward. You learn to keep your face blank when a message mentions a covert landing, a diplomat's schedule, a special package headed east. The silence you keep isn't empty, it's packed tight like ammunition. Agent, White House detail. Where proximity demands discretion. Your shoes squeak softly on polished floors as you take your post. The White House looks ceremonial from the outside, but inside it's all angles and choke points, doorways, stairwells, sight lines down long corridors lined with portraits that watch you back. You memorize the weight of every doorknob, the tempo of every footstep. Even the laughter feels measured. You scan hands before faces. You watch for the twitch of a cuff, the wrong bulge in a pocket, the split-second hesitation at a checkpoint. You tell yourself the smiles are part of the job. You tell yourself the handshakes are just surfaces. You tell yourself you can stay human without getting soft. But the president's proximity turns every stranger into a math problem you solve in your bones. Each morning you coordinate with military intelligence in a tight briefing, threat summaries, intercepted chatter, routes marked in grease pencil on a mapboard. Alternate exits, motorcade spacing, who stands where when the cameras arrive. You learn the cruel trick of closeness. The nearer you are to power, the less room you have to breathe. You've learned to connect calls, carry secrets, and stand close enough to hear the president's cufflinks click. Next, you don't just watch threats, you speak to them, and every word becomes a lever. Advanced Negotiator, where the threat gets a voice, and you answer it. The first time they hand you the receiver, it's heavier than it should be. You sit at a plain desk in a side room off the West Wing, blinds half drawn, an ashtray you don't use, a stenographer's pad you fill anyway. The line crackles with distance hotel switchboards, payphones, field radios patched through. You ask for names. You ask for proof of life. You ask questions that sound like courtesy and function like a searchlight. You keep your tone level while your fingers count. Seconds between breaths, syllables that slur on purpose. A background sound, train whistle, radiator hiss, a bar's clink that pins a city to a map. You tell yourself you're buying time. You tell yourself you're protecting the principle. You tell yourself words can be softer than bullets. Then you agree to a gesture, and realize you just moved men with a sentence. You write down demands in ink, not pencil. You coordinate a drop that isn't a drop, a meeting that isn't a meeting, a promise phrased so it can't be used like a rope. You don't win negotiations, you trade pieces of yourself for minutes, and hope the minutes hold. Chief Tactical Coordinator. Where negotiation becomes a map, and you move the map. Outside the situation room, a runner brings coffee that's gone bitter from sitting. Inside, the table is crowded with clipboards, route charts, and a city grid marked in grease pencil. You stand, because sitting feels like permission to relax. Radios murmur on multiple bands. Someone reads out plate numbers. Someone else repeats them back, steady as a metronome. You pull every thread together. Secret Service posts, military police cordons, local detectives who don't like taking orders, and an Army Signal Corps tech who swears the line is secure. You decide where the president does not go. You decide which door stays locked. You decide which car gets the dummy flag. You tell yourself redundancy is safety. You tell yourself contingency is professionalism. You tell yourself control is the same thing as protection. Then you reroute a motorcade because of one intercepted phrase, and the entire city shifts around a man who will never know why. At this level, you stop reacting to danger, you schedule it, like weather, and pray your forecast is right. Inner Circle Fixer. Where you manage the unreportable, so the mission can continue. Your access pass opens doors that don't have labels. The hallway carpet muffles footsteps, but you still hear them, your own, and the ones that pause when you appear. You keep a small notebook in your inside pocket and never let it leave your body. Meetings happen in borrowed offices and parked cars, engines ticking as they cool, curtains drawn even in daylight. You don't just negotiate with threats, you negotiate with embarrassment, with rumor, with the fragile machinery of alliances. A senator's aide loses a file. A foreign liaison arrives with a personal demand attached to a security request. A local chief of police wants credit and threatens to leak details if he doesn't get it. You trade favors with signatures, seating charts, travel delays, and quiet phone calls to the right colonel. You tell yourself it's for continuity. You tell yourself it's for stability. You tell yourself the principle matters more than the paperwork. Then you watch a report get misfiled, on purpose, and you realize your job is to make reality fit the schedule. You become the shadow behind the seal, necessary, invisible, and impossible to cleanly dismiss. In the end, every level teaches the same lesson in different uniforms. You learn how a nation moves, through wires, through corridors, through voices that never make the papers. You learn how protection isn't a wall, it's a constant negotiation with time, with fear, with human error. And no matter how high you rise, the line still rings and you still have to answer.